Hello guys, good afternoon and welcome back. Alright, so in this video, I want to let us know or teach us how to take your client measurements. Whom is not in Nigeria or whom is not in your locality or accessible to you, but then you want to make clothes for the person, right? Now, bear in mind that this tutorial is peculiar to me, and several people might have their own different methods of how to get their client's measurements. Now, the first method you will use to get your client's measurements is by simply asking him or her to send down his measurements, right? That's going to a tailor and take the measurement. Then some persons might not be willing or might not be disposed to go to a tailor to take their measurements. Some might not be able to see tailor within their vicinity, especially those in the UK and European countries, right? So they likely find it difficult to get a tailor or a designer who can measure them. Now, that is the first method to use. You must make sure you exhaust all of these methods I am going to outline for you. Now, the second method to use is to ask the person to get a tape, right? Now, when he or she gets a tape, you will ask her or ask him to take the reading of any of his personal clothes that he deemed fit or deemed okay with. Now he will measure across the chest from the armhole across this way to the armhole. He should place the tape this way, right? And measure across when not when putting on the body, when on its own, he should keep the clothes on the table or bed, measure across the chest straight, and then whatever value you have across, you have to now make it times two, right? Now that is the second method to get the measurement. Then you also measure the shoulder from the center of the neck to the point of the shoulder where the sleeve was joint. Now measure the neckline, the length of the top, and something as well applicable on the trouser. Now you might be on WhatsApp call with him or her while they are taking the measurements. Now the third method is by asking them to also bring the tape and then tell someone to be with them when you make a video call with them. Then you will guide the person on how to take the measurement to your own standard, right? To your own standard. Now, next thing as well is to ask them, that's they will take the measurements while you watch and while you guide, right? While you guide them on how to do the measurements. Now, some persons might not be willing to do this. Some might not have someone that might be around with them to take the measurements. Now, the fourth method you use is by asking them their sizes. Now, their sizes can be medium, extra large, large, small. Now, most of the times, these sizes might not be perfect to some persons. Now, the sizes might fit some people that are slim, but for bigger people, it might not really fit in well. So, when you are also working with sizes, you still need to be very careful and very cautious of how to go ahead with the measurements. Now, the last method, but not the least, which I use and which I recommend for everybody is to ask them to send down their pictures. Now, they should send down a picture that looks like this. They should send a picture that looks like a full frame picture, right? Now, they should not wear suits or wear any bogus outfits. All right, so now when they send in their pictures, now you might take your time, to ascertain their real size. Now, the only way I do mine is I use my own size as a guide to know this person's picture and mine, who is bigger or who is small or who is smaller, right? Now, I will tell myself the honest truth. Now, most of the times, I might not be in the mood to think deeply. I will leave it whenever I am calm. I will think deeply. And bear in mind that You don't need to just guess out of sentiment or out of whatsoever. You need to look critically on the picture they must have sent, and you'll be able to know that this person might be of the same size with you, or of a smaller size with you, or of a bigger size with you. Now, when you are able to decide or ascertain the nature of measurement. Now, if you're a female designer that is doing this, you must make sure you have an already known client or customer that you know his measurement very well, that even if you are dreaming, you'll be able to make the clothes for the person without thinking his or her measurement, right? So when you bring the picture of the current customer you want to make clothes for, you now have to relate it to the previous customer that you are fully sure of his or her measurement. Then you now be jotting down the sizes accordingly, right? Now, for example, I use my measurements as a guide to make my assertions or my guessing or my predictions, right? However you want to see it. So my chest, fitted chest is 44, 45. Now, if I want to have a freak outfit, just like the one I'm putting on now, I do 46, 47, so that it will be free on me. If I want to have a fitted cloth, I will do 44 and a half, 45, right? At maximum 46. So now, when you are well rounded with your measurement, if you're a male tailor or male designer, then you will be able to predict that this person might be taller or might be bigger or however more than you. So now, still on still, I always use my tape and have a deep imagination as I am measuring this person, right? Because if you are good in what you are doing, you should be able to walk in the spirit. Like you should be able to have that high spirit that predicts for you or tells you what to do. It comes naturally, right? There's no there's no trick to that. It comes naturally. That's why some tellers can tell you that they don't need to measure you, that they have seen you. It's not as if they're doing magic. They are going to predict your measurement with an already known measurement. Or with your body size, they will imagine their tape round your body, and they will be able to predict. So when you get to this stage of using pictures for measurements, the first thing to note is that you must put allowance inside for increments. Should in case you miscalculate or guess at the first trial, the person might increase the outfit, right? Wherever he is or she is. Then you have to put enough allowance inside, at least 1.5 inch on both sides. And it must be properly weaved and ironed, right? So that when he's opening it up, you won't see any dent or any lapses on the size of the cloth, or it will not be impossible for him to increase the measurement. Now, when you know this, and then make sure that you use a matching thread so that when he's going to work on the cloth, the person that will work on the cloth will not have any bad comments as regards to your work. Your work must be neat enough, because if your job is neat enough, the person that will amend it will still take bearing from what you have already done to correct the measurement. Because, for example, if you use black thread to sew white fabric, automatically you have lost that customer, right? Because when he's going to do adjustments or alterations, the person in charge will tell him, Oga, who made this clothes for you? In not try you, he used black thread as against the color he should have used, or whatever color is that. Then also bear in mind that when you are giving this prediction of your measurements, you have to let your customer know that this is what you feel that will be his size. So there should be room for understanding and like say negotiation, so that it won't be like you are giving him 100% assurance. You tell him that you will do your best, and while doing your best, also be praying so that God will guide you to do this, because this is not by your power or by my power. It's by God's gifts and directions and grace, because God works in all fields, right? So you have to also give room for God's grace to come in to guide you. Then when you have gotten to that stage, Now, the major thing to get here very well will be your customer's shoulder. Your customer's shoulder, then followed by the chest or tummy. Now, next is the waist. Now, if you happen to hit or get these three perfectly well, every other thing will enter, because your shoulder will be your guideline to know the type of chest you will give. Your waist will be your guideline to know the type of hip and lap and knee you will give. Right? These three things must align, must be perfect for you to be able to get the rest correctly. Because if you get the shoulder wrong, you are obviously getting the chest wrong. And obviously, the sleeve length will be wrong. And obviously, your waist as well might also be wrong, right? So, if you're working on getting measurement from pictures, you must focus more on getting the shoulder well, getting the chest well, and this is the basic things you need to get well. Then you must get the chest, shoulder, waist. Then once you get these things well, you will now be able to predict further that who has a shoulder of, let's say, 20 should have a broad chest, right? Then you now go ahead to align the chest in line with the picture that you are seeing or that they gave you. Now, if you happen to get the waist correctly well, you will now go ahead to predict the hip, the lap, the ankle, and the shoulder length accordingly. Because the waist is the major point of the trouser. If the waist is not able to lock, obviously it will enter the person's lap, or whatever you have sewn is not correct. But if the waist is able to lock, the person can manage it, even though it's big, he can manage it that way, right? So if the shoulder enter properly, even if the body is fitted, the person can still manage it, or if the body is big, the person can still manage it and make do with it. So when doing this, you just have to be careful and cautious, and then make sure that whatever reading you are keeping, you are taking down for the person. Write it down somewhere. Write it down somewhere, so that in subsequent times, after making the cloth, there is time for judgment. When the person will receive the cloth, he or she will call you for review. Now, if he's reviewing with you and tells you that it's perfect, you have to go and save that measurement for that person. Then you have to bear in mind that you have recorded one successful measurement prediction from pictures. Then if he calls and say, it's good, but the neck is tight, you have to rush to your measurement to use and adjust the neck immediately. You ask him how tight was it. He will say, it's not too tight, but it's just a bit tight. You add extra half inch to what you use. If it was much tight, you will add extra 1 inch to whatever you use on that neckline. Then if he says that the chest was big, you have to reduce by 1 inch or 2 inches depending on how big it was. If he still says that the waist was tight or big, you also adjust it to the current measurement it should have been. So by so doing, you might not expect to be perfect at the first trial, but subsequently, when you do this once or twice, you will be very, very much perfect in your predictions. Now, another route that you use to build your perfection before you start taking orders from outside your locality or country is when someone steps into your shop to take measurements. What I do is, before I measure the chest, I will first of all guess the chest, what the chest will be like. If I guess rightly, or if I get, let's say, 40 in my mind, I will go and measure. Then if the 40 was not slightly guessed, I will now look at the difference. Was it big or was it tight? I will have to observe what made me guess wrongly or what made me guess rightly. By so doing, I will be recording my success stories and editing my perfections, right? Now, before I take the shoulder measurements, I will guess the shoulder, let's say, to be 17. And by that virtue, if I happen to go and measure the shoulder and it's not 17 or it's 17, I will record if I was right or if I was wrong. By so doing, I will be editing my steps in my guessing. Now, if I happen to go and measure the neck, before I measure the neck, I will get the neck to be, let's say, 17. And I put my tape on the neck to take 17. I will check the difference if I was right or if I was wrong. Before I measure the sleeve length, I will get the length to be 15 for 3/4. And then if I measure and see that it's 15, I will now know if I was right or wrong. The same thing with the round sleeves, the waist, the hip, the lap. So I kind of use my physical customers to do my guessing or to do my predictions first before I was able to boldly say, bring me pictures, I will get you your measurements, right? So I have actually written down a customer's measurement in my phone. He came to measure while we were discussing size and, price. Sorry, I had to record the measurements in my phone, and because I use my phone to take my measurements, right? My phone notes. So when I went to measure, I told my PA to be recording the new measurements at the sides of each one I wrote initially. So when you were recording the measurements, it was a near there, like I was having like half-inch lesser or half-inch bigger. So when I finished the measurement, I now went down and studied what I did. I knew where I got wrong and where I got right. So in subsequent ones, I was able to get it right in next customer. Now, that is another method to perfect the measurement, right? So now the last but not the least, like I said, when you make clothes as a designer, you'll be making clothes for different people. So I usually take notes of similar numbers that appear often. Like when I see a chest of 40, what appears on the round sleeve, I always see 13, 14. Do you understand? So I see this frequently. So I know that anyone that has a chest of 40 is likely to have a round sleeve of 13 to 14, 13 and a half, 14 round sleeve. I also note that if you have a chest of 40, you are likely to see a neckline of 16, 16 and a half, or higher 17. Do you get? Now, I have not seen chest of 40, neck of 18. I have not seen. Now, I have not seen chest of 40, shoulder of 21. I have not seen. I only see shoulder of 19 and a half, 20. For some persons that are slim, but they have broad shoulders, right? So, I always take note of the matching numbers that appears frequently on some certain measurements. So, by so doing, you'll be able to predict your customer's measurements without having much problems. So I don't know if this video might have helped you to give an insight on how to go about it. Honestly, I have a lot to explain, but not to make the video to be too long, I will leave it here, and I pray that you understand the rest of it from your own initiative. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to comment, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you in my next video. Bye bye for now.